Welcome back to Keep Back 200 Feet. Here with our guest, Chief Scott Bundick from the Little Creek Fire Department in Little Creek, Delaware. I've heard there's guys from upstate here in New York, chief or two chiefs, they complain that the training and the recruitment was too difficult for new members to try to make it easier for them. And my first response was, why are you making it easier for a difficult job? You should raise the bar, not lower it, to get members in. I know for the volunteer service for yourselves, numbers are important. You need members. I said, but you want the right members. You know,
So this is a
it seems like a problem everywhere.
so this is I mean this is a man you're walking right into and I think that you were part of one of these debates one time around the kitchen table, but
Probably.
we this is a debate that both Bryce and Reed, my boys, have had with me, either ganged up on me or one on one with me over the last few years. And one of the things is the volunteer fire service, just in general, and you just pointed it out, often is about quantity, not quality. I want a bunch of guys. If I got one or two really good guys, then the job gets done or things happen. But and then I have a quantity of folks to do all those ancillary things that anybody can do. I mean, literally, you could ask the guy standing on the corner to do, and sometimes that's what we had. And the bar for departments often is a lot lower than what should be acceptable. But it's what the system is. That's just how the system's designed.
So do you had mentioned that some of the departments in Delaware, they're a combination now. Do you see that like taking over the states? Like Delaware, New York, the other states around, like, bring in new members as a retention tactic?
One of the main drivers of the combination is the staffing of the EMS units. And then, as a side note to that, they're cross-staffing fire apparatus to get apparatus out. That was the original reason why folks were hiring staffing. When somebody joins, they're not saying, "Well, I'm not coming down there because those guys that are being paid are going to take care of it." That hasn't been necessarily an issue through widespread through the county. There is one local department that does have staffing, and the volunteerism has taken a pretty hard nosedive for them, and they tried to recover from that, and they decided to staff both their ambulances, and they have that the folks that do that cross staff the fire apparatus, which has given them better service for their community, because there's just no volunteerism and there's no way to do a program like we have. It's just too far gone to do that, at least in the short term. But we here, what we've noticed has been a recruitment and retention issue for us is, we have roughly 52 runs a month, I think is what our average has been running right now for this year. So roughly 52 runs a month, and 85% of them, the duty engine's handling from the firehouse. Like, they're not even the crew that's in the firehouse is handling those runs. They're not activating the siren or not activating the pagers. So somebody that's at home, A, doesn't know there's a call, or B, they if they do hear the call, there is a general alarm, and they go, they've got 2 units staffed. I'm not going to go up there. By the time I get there, to the incident, it's going to be over with, so I'm not going to go. So we've had some internal struggle with that. Structure fires, it hasn't been an issue. It hasn't been an issue with entrapment accidents, but for some of the other things, like water
gas
rescues,
leak, water leak, nobody really wants to jump on a car and.
Right. Nobody wants to. One of the things is we're the county hazmat team. Like, we're the county decontamination team. But now we're running the Newcastle County because of staffing issues, and we've been doing that for the last 2 years. When we get dispatched for those runs, the crew inside the firehouse is getting in those apparatus and going. But what happens is to backfill the firehouse becomes difficult because nobody comes up here. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to get stuck on that hazmat call. It's not something they want to go to.
So wait, so the guys in the house will staff the hazmat call,
Yeah.
and take off.
Yeah.
So is it like, can you say, okay, if we have a hazmat call, we need X amount of people to show up to man the rigs while the hazmat guys are out? So are they doing that, or apparently?
Yeah, we're able to maintain the staffing. normally, but it's not the response that if it would be if it was a structure fire or if it was an entrapment accident. You know people are holding back, but where we
Right.
really notice it, where we really see it is on water rescues. We've got a large bay area. We get
Yes.
dispatched on water rescues, and traditionally water rescues have been a low turnout type of run for us anyway. Even before we were staffing, most of my career as chief, it was the lowest turnout run. And part of the reason is you only can take 4 people on the boat. You only can do, a lot of guys would show up to do nothing, and they're long calls. So, if you go out in the bay and you're out in the bay for, 2 hours and you get back, that person's been sitting in the firehouse waiting for you. So to
Yeah,
backfill,
that's tough.
the staff hasn't been an issue in that
Okay.
sense. But our problem is we don't see the numbers.
So for recruitment purposes, moving forward from here, your plan works, but what do you have any adjustments to try and up the membership?
Well, we've been working, so we've kind of gone back to some of the basics we've had. We've been talking to, the guys that we have, the active guys we have, and say, hey, do you got a friend? Do you have somebody that you think would fit in with where we're at? Not just a body, but somebody that's going to come in and put the time in to do the training. Somebody that's going to be, their attitude's going to be right. Somebody that comes in that's going to accept the constructive criticism and things, and not say, I got something better to do today. I'm not going to do that thing. And we've had some folks that have come in and they've been here for a month or two, and they've come back and said, this just isn't for me. And some of those folks have moved on to other Delaware fire departments, and they've joined, and I guess they're successful in doing what they're doing. But as I was talking about before, we raised the bar. About a year ago or whatever, we said, this level where we're expecting everybody to be at just isn't acceptable. We need that bar to be higher. And so we nudged that thing up quite a bit, and it caused a little bit of, I don't want to say it caused a little bit of stir, but it caused a little bit of a ripple effect. And right now we're in the process of raising that bar a couple little notches again, with some training stuff. But it's going to be much better received. I don't expect to be the ripple effect that we had now, because meaning the group, the 44 people that are on average here are driving that. They're driving that, and
Okay.
it's worked out well for us in that sense. We've had a lot of, and that's one of the things that's been one of our successes with this program is early on we enlisted the people that were invested in the program, their opinions, and what changes would you like to see, and what things can we do differently. And we have, it's an independent corporation, but you have a board of directors, you have company meetings, you have to justify the things you're doing and the stuff you're doing, and the company has been very supportive of every effort that we have done moving forward. Because this is a different place. I mean, this is a different place than 6.5 years ago. It looks different, feels different, and it's not bad. It's all good,
Well, raising the bar, like you say, is key, and you're going to bring in the right people. It's like every volunteer department to me, as a career guy my whole life, is a business. And if your business is successful, you grow and you maintain a level. If your business is not successful, it falters. You have less customers, if you will, less employees. So clearly, your plan has done exceptionally well over the years. And again, it's not a perfect world, but it's overall, right, Chief, you would say you're doing marvelously.
Yeah, I mean, when you sit back and look at the statistics of how long we've been staffed, and look at the challenges that we faced through that, I mean, we've turned over live-in members. Some have moved on, got their own places to live, did different things. Some have moved away. If you look at just the general membership, the folks that have been through the door, and look at the faces that we don't have here now, that we thought we'd always have here. We always looked at life expectancy of, or membership expectancy of a new member when we brought them in was 5 years. The first 2 years it took them to get all their training done, and then you got, 1 or 2 good years out of them. And then, at the end of the 5th year, they kind of sailed off into the sunset. And,
Yeah.
and that 5 years worked for those 14-year-old junior members. They would come in as 14-year-old junior members, and, those guys would, they'd be here and they'd be doing their thing, and they get their driver's license, and then boom, their whole world changed.
Yeah. But you
Girlfriends
planted
and
a
things.
seed,
Yeah.
though,
Right.
right? You
And
planted
we
a seed.
and
You
we had and we
mentored
had to
guys.
and we had to set the hook, or we lost them at 16, and we were good at that. We didn't lose those guys normally. They stuck around. But the next big challenge we had is when they turned 18, and there just wasn't anything here to keep them here. If they moved out, they had to move somewhere else. There was no place. There was no place to live here because it's a small community, and literally somebody back then had to die for them to come in. What we've created now is we've given them a route to be here if they want to be here, and then we've given them a route to have an opinion about what they want to do, how they think things should operate and stuff, and the leadership will look at that stuff. And we've changed a lot in what we've done on ideas that have come from them, from the people that are here staffing and doing those things. I mean, so
That's impressive.
it's been. Yeah, I mean, we have a good record. Some of it was by accident, but some of it, a lot of it now is it's a business move. And you talked about it being a business, and we're talking today about next steps. We're looking at next evolution parts of this, how this moves,
Right down the road.
what this looks like. I'm 51 years old, so I'm not quite as old as you, Mike.
No, I got shoes older than you.
Yeah, yeah. But
I'm wearing them right
I'm
now,
50
actually.
Well, I'm 51 years old. I've been chief for 26 years. I never wanted to be chief. I'll be honest with you. In 2020 or 1999, I was the deputy chief. That was the best job here. I would be deputy chief forever if I could be. One guy's ahead of you. It's the best job. But I ended up being chief in 2020, or I'm sorry, 2000. And I only thought I'd be chief for a couple of years, and then somebody else would be chief. And here I am 26
That's
years later.
amazing. Yeah, I could have been a deputy chief too if it wasn't for all those tests. Other than
Yeah, exactly. Well, in we that's part of our recruitment and retention. Part of the problem with that we've identified internally was stability and leadership. If you have stability and leadership, people understand what the rules are, and people understand who they're dealing with on a regular basis. They tend to stick around.
Yeah.
Just last night I had a member text me and say, hey, Chief, can I talk to you for a few minutes? I got this issue. It's a personal issue, but I have this issue. Can you make some time? I said, yeah, I'll have some time, maybe around 8 o'clock. I stopped by. We have this discussion, about this issue, which was not fire department related, but he was just looking to bounce something off of somebody. And that 15, 20 minutes that I took with him made the world to him. Meant the world to him because I took time out of my day to do that. But it also allowed me to have a glimpse into what challenges he was having, personally. So as we're looking forward down the road, I could be on the lookout to help.
right. Well, I mean, 26 years. I don't have to tell you, but for people listening in, younger guys and even older guys, you're a mentor, you're a coach, and sometimes you're just a shoulder to cry on, and you give them the right advice or guide them down the right path. That's enormous. I mean,
Yeah,
I
and
think it's-
it is enormous, and I think you probably had the same experience as being the senior guy, at the firehouse, and then ultimately being an officer at the firehouse. I mean, I mean, one of the things that I've in all my years of being involved in emergency services now, what I have noticed is a firehouse is a firehouse. I mean, they may all look different, the people may be different that's in there, but the mentality of everybody is relatively the same. And what I mean by that is there's obviously differences because of just regionally, but
Right.
I have some friends, I have some friends in Heartland, Maine that I'm very close to. They've actually came down and done some training with you
Yeah,
when you were there.
we met one. Yeah, we met. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and you know, Chief Carmichael up there. We talk 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes, sometimes daily. But me, when I walk into that firehouse, it feels the same as walking into Little Creek as it did when I walked in to 58 truck in the Bronx. It all has the same components to it. It's just regionally things are different. And what's really been helpful, I think, for recruitment, at least for us, is the internet and the videos and the trainings and the things and these types of podcasts where people are listening to stuff that's outside of their region allows them to bring things back or bring ideas back to what they're doing and tailoring it to how they operate. I mean,
Oh yeah,
some things that we're doing here comes out of visits to 58 truck. Just and what I mean by that is it's just when we got into the staffing program. I mean, nobody understood how to have people living in the firehouse and dealing with and chores and how to make that work. Now we have several career firemen here now that are doing that for a living and they get the program. But in the beginning, we didn't know. We had to figure things out. And meal times and how to deal with that and how to deal with those things. So
I tell a lot of the junior guys and guys coming on that the firehouse is like a relationship. You're dating a girl or a guy, whatever you are, and sometimes it goes great, and sometimes it doesn't. It's not a means you're bad or the firehouse is bad. It's just not a good fit, and then you find a better fit. But if you guys are doing those things, you're making that fit easier. You're accommodating. That's what more people should, I think, should look at. Can you go over some of the training that you've done over the years that has, brought the members to the level they're at now?
Well, we've often contracted out to other instructors outside of the Dover area or outside of the Delaware State Fire School training. So we often found to bringing a different perspective, we, as you have brought to us, and other folks that have come along. We've done a lot of those types of trainings early on in my chief career. As in the latter part now, we do a lot of stuff internally. We've traditionally, since I was a junior member, have had Tuesday night training drill nights where there would be a specific topic and we would do that. And from 7 p.m. until we were done, 10:30, we would do certain topics and the folks would come in and do that stuff. We had put this training center behind the firehouse back in 2015, which you heard me talk about before, and you've actually trained out of it, but we've had two 20-foot Connex boxes we stacked on top of each other that we were able to burn in, and we would burn pallets or burn straw in. And then we had a 40-foot box that we had built almost like a trailer, different rooms in where we could smoke it up and do searches and stuff like that. These props didn't replace what we were getting at the State Fire Training Center, which had much better structural firefighting props, with interior stairwells and things like that. But what this allowed us to do was to practice the initial phases of deploying a hand line and getting a line through a door, or getting up a stairwell, or getting a search, started, or throw some ground ladders. So almost daily here, as part of the crew program or the staffing program, daily here, they'll take a few hours a day and go out and do training of some sort. The ladder crews will go out and do some ladder training. If we keep vehicles here all the time for them to cut on, so we have a local tow yard. They'll bring a vehicle out. We'll set the vehicles out here, and the officers have the discretion to do whatever they need to do here with them. We have a tractor, a small front-end load tractor, so we can flip the cars over and practice shoring and practice strutting and tying back vehicles. So there's a daily training. There's a daily training cadence that's here. The Tuesday night trainings are more for folks that aren't on staffing or that aren't here as much as others, or it just could be another night that we get a little bit more folks here to be involved, and we can get into the depth of some of the more basic skills and things that we think we need to work on, or changes. Hose load changes, equipment changes, and things like that. It's a good way to deploy or outside of that. And then one of our signature things that we've been doing is the drill, the bi-monthly drill Saturday, which starts about 9 a.m. and goes until we're done. And we'll have up to 12 scenarios that are written up, and basically they'll go from scenario to scenario to scenario, from a medical call to high angle rescue type of incident, to a structure fire, to a rescue type situation, CO stuff, things that they're going to run into regularly, and then we can evaluate folks on their response to that, put people in officer seats or put people in jobs that they don't typically ride in, to give them an opportunity to learn. And like I said, this has been one of our biggest hooks for people to get here or be here.
Well, you're offering a good product, and apparently it's working quite well for all these years. And for the people at home, wherever you are watching, I've been down there numerous times, and they've put together like acquired structures for a weekend where we've burned wet hay in the building, so it was as realistic as possible. Wasn't smoke machines, because I don't know how to say this, but I think, Scott, our chief, I would say that firefighters, like a lot of times in New York State, the lawyers are involved in every state, I guess, and want to protect the members from injury during training. But there's a real world kind of need to have members taste and feel smoke without a face piece on, again, under safe conditions, so they understand if their mask should malfunction at a job, what they're going to feel. What's your thought on that?
I think it's beneficial. I went through something similar when I was learning, first in firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 classes. That was something they actually back in the late 80s, they actually had us put the air pack on, and then had us unhook, had the mask on, but we didn't have their belt mounted, didn't have them in, and have them stuff them in our jackets and do like an afternoon doing that. I think there is some benefit to them understanding, in the smoky environment, to disconnect and be able to reconnect either to a regulator from a RIT bag or from someone else, or practice, and we do this frequently, practice hooking up their buddy breather system and things like that. So we limitedly allow them to be breathing that and smelling this, getting a feel for that smoke, but we haven't ran an evolution necessarily where they're going in without a mask on.
Yeah.
Like we used to do in the past.
Right. I mean, like, there are standards, NFPA standards we don't want to violate, but there are certain things that you don't want the first time a member to take off his regulator because his mask has malfunctioned, is in an actual fire, and they're hit with this and they're not sure what to do, or they panic, God forbid. It's more like you're doing something a little dangerous to prevent something from worse happening in a real dangerous situation.
Right.
Yeah, that's just what I've always thought for years. I appreciate the fact that the carcinogenics today and the petroleum-based products are worse than wet hay, which will make your nose run, your eyes water, and burn. It's not terrible comparatively. So since the fires today are worse, the smoke condition, I should say, unless you're in Brooklyn, they're always worse. They should have a little bit of an understanding and a taste for it. So at least they go, okay, this is normal. I expect this. I know what to do. I've trained on it. Because you don't want them, I guess, how do you say it, poop the bed at that critical moment?
Right.
That's how I look at it.
That's true.
Yeah, again, everyone has different things. Well, we're going to start winding this down now.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to add, Chief, that you want to just put out there to teach the other departments and guys a quick sum up of your retention programs?
I think the thing I want to put out to everybody is that there's no dumb ideas. If you're sitting in a firehouse around the country and you're struggling with manpower, you're struggling on how to staff and do that, start asking the folks that are coming around first. Ask them what they think. And a lot of times, nobody has any good answers. Then start looking outside the box. Start looking at some ideas that, may be uncomfortable. This staffing program here, I watched, one of the very first meetings when I joined the fire department here at 14 in 1989, I watched them throw somebody out for sleeping in the firehouse. It was a cardinal sin here. You couldn't fall asleep here. They just didn't like it. And a lot of fire departments were that way. They have rules and different things throughout the years that worked in 1970, but in 2020, we got to do something different. And that's my advice, and that's the advice. I've had taken calls from all over the country from different folks when they see our Facebook post or they see things that we've done or accomplished. And one of the things that I always say to them is look at everything, anything that may work. Because the program here works great, but it may not work necessarily in upstate New York or middle New York. There's different things or different thought processes. But but there's one thing that I think that we all suffer from that's in the volunteer service is that volunteerism is difficult. The pressures on family life is difficult.
Yes.
Things are more expensive, multiple jobs, both mom and dad are working, so somebody's got to take care of the kids. There's very little downtime.
A lot of moving parts.
And then once again, I said this. There's just more to do. I mean, there's just more to do. I see them doing this all the time, and if I walk over to the station, they're probably doing it right now. But there's these live games that are, they're fire service oriented that are almost real life. You don't even you can be a fireman and never even leave your living room if you want.
That's
and I know that's not. That's not what we want, but but those guys, that's what's happening in this world. That's what's going on. So.
Okay, well, we'll be right. One last thing from me.
Yep.
I thought of using that to get more people to my lecture classes. I kept offering free beer. Only problem was they actually wanted it at the end of the night, so that didn't work well. I'm trying something else down the road.
I do want to share this one story, and I think this would be good for. Your listeners. And the story is the first time I ever seen Mike at a class. Mike came to Delaware, and it was a joint training with a couple of fire departments in Central Kent County, and we did the lecture series at the State Fire Training Academy. And the room we were in had 2 or 3 doors that came into the room, and we were sitting in there, and this guy was in a blazer. Was walking in and out of these doors, going back and forth, and I thought to myself, who in the world is this guy, and why doesn't he just sit down? And we had no idea who he was, and finally you introduce yourself to us, and you're like, this is what the fire ground is like when you don't have order. And then you went into the lecture, and we were doing, at that time, fast stuff, rapid intervention stuff, and it stuck with me like that, and I was like, man, I'm not quite sure about this guy here and what he's doing with all this stuff going on. But here we've become great friends over the years, and here we are. And so we are appreciative of everything. We couldn't have done. Our program is very much rooted into the good training and things that we've received from you. So,
well, you guys made me better, and I appreciate that tremendously. But Chief, I want to thank you for coming on, giving us your time. Your insight, your certainly your expertise in this. So thanks, and thank the boys, Reed and Bryce, and everybody down in Little Creek. Tell them I'll see them soon. And well, that's it for another episode of Keep Back 200 Feet. I want to thank Chief Scott Bundick once again for his time and his expertise. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I certainly learned a lot of things, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. In the meantime, let's be careful out there, and remember. Keep back 200 feet.